Welcome to this ASP.NET Core DataGrid control tutorial. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to enable editing options and the different types of editing in Syncfusion ASP.NET Core DataGrid. You will also see the different editing modes and how to disable columns in the DataGrid. First, I'll open the existing ASP.NET Core web application where I have added the grid control. I have also bound order data to the grid control using the data source property. I have used the e-grid columns tag to customize grid columns with a few basic properties. To learn more about integrating the data grid control into an ASP.NET Core web application, please check the Getting Started video linked in the card above and the description below. Let me run this application by pressing the F5 key. See, the data grid is rendered with the columns order ID, customer name, order date, freight, and ship city. Next, I'll show you how to enable the editing options. By default, the data grid supports options to add a new record, update, and delete existing records. For these functionalities, I need to set the isPrimaryKey property to true in the order ID column, as I'm going to maintain this column with unique values. To enable editing options, first I need to include the e-grid-editSettings tag inside the data grid code. Then enable the allow adding, allow editing, and allow deleting properties to perform add, edit, and delete operations. Next, I will show how to display toolbar options in a data grid. The available toolbar options are add, edit, delete, update, and cancel. I add the toolbar property. You can assign the value in the form of a list of strings or toolbar items, or a combination of both. Now I assign values to add, edit, delete, update, and cancel as a list of strings. Here you can see the data grid enabled with the toolbar containing edit options. You can add a new record by clicking the Add button, and edit a record by clicking the Edit button after selecting a row. Also, you can edit a record by double-clicking its row. You can delete a record by clicking the Delete button after selecting a row. When I double-click the grid row, text boxes are displayed in all the grid columns. However, in real-time applications, you need to customize the text boxes to display different editor controls on each grid column. If you want to change the built-in editing type for any grid column, use the Edit Type property. Let me show you the different types of cell editing in the data grid component. They are numeric text box, drop-down list, checkbox, date picker, and date time picker. The text box type, which is a default type, is used to display string values. A numeric text box is used for integer, double, and decimal data types. The drop-down list displays the values mapped to its data source field. Date picker is used for the date type, date time picker for date time type, and a checkbox for Boolean value. To set the date picker editor for the order date column, I add the edit type property and set it to date picker edit. To add a numeric editor for the freight column, set the edit type to numeric edit. Finally, I set the edit type to drop-down edit to add a drop-down list editor for the ship city column. When I edit a record, you will notice that the date picker is enabled for the order date column, numeric text box for the freight column, and drop-down list for the ship city column. I can also customize the behavior of the editor control through the editor settings property of the e-grid column tag. Here, I plan to customize the default drop-down list by enabling the filter in the grid editor. First, I declare the variable drop-down list and create an instance of the drop-down list control using the Syncfusion EJ2 drop-downs namespace, and enable the allow filtering property. Then, I assign the drop-down list variable as params to the edit property in the shipcity column. When I double-click the records, the filter is enabled, and when I type some characters, the drop-down list shows relevant items in the pop-up. Next, let me show you the different editing modes in the data grid. They are normal, dialog, and batch. So far, the grid I showed you was enabled with the default normal mode, and when you double-click the grid record, the editor will be shown in line. Next, I will demonstrate the dialog editing mode. To enable this mode, I need to set the mode property inside the e-grid-editSettings and set its value to dialog. When I start to edit the record, the dialog will pop out. Here, I can edit the record details and save the changes by clicking the Save button. Suppose I want to edit and save the changes as a bulk to the grid data source. I use the batch mode. To enable batch editing mode, I change the mode property to batch inside the e-grid-editSettings. Now I can edit multiple grid records by double-clicking the cells. You can see the edited cells are highlighted and they can be saved using the Update option in the toolbar. Finally, I will show you how to disable the editing options for a particular column. Here, I plan to disable editing for the freight column, so I set the Allow Editing property to false. When I double-click the grid row, the freight column is in a disabled state. Let me quickly summarize what I've shown you so far. I showed you how to enable the editing feature of the ASP.NET Core DataGrid along with the DataGrid's toolbar options. I also showed the different types of cell editing and editor modes supported in the DataGrid component. You can download a working example from the GitHub link shared in the description below. You can also see if you're eligible for our community license, which will get you a free license key to use our products. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel.